We all have that one car that makes us think of our childhood, don't we? And for me, it's the Austin Mini Metro, good enough for the likes of Princess Diana and my granddad. So let's take a look at one of the definitive hatches of the 1980s. The Austin Mini Metro was designed to replace the original Mini, but quickly realising how popular that still was, British Leyland carried on producing the Mini and made the Mini Metro as its own standalone. The Mini then carried on to outlive the Metro by another 3 years. The Mini Metro was designed to be a car that you'd own for about 10 years or so before ultimately throwing away, so because of that, many of them were scrapped, so surviving examples like this are now extremely rare. And coupled with British Leyland's seeming commitment to corrosion, it means that even models that are sitting around in barns now are still pretty rotten. The Mini Metro came with the ubiquitous A-Series engine, which had a massive lifespan from 1951 until 2000, but that engine was a 1300cc that only gave you 62 brake horsepower, and it does make me think, didn't people in the 80s want a little bit more oomph? But then at the same time, the car only weighs 750 kilos, so maybe it provided everything you needed. As I said, my love for this car goes back to my childhood, and my granddad had a bright yellow one that only came out of the garage on special occasions, and I was never allowed really to travel in because it didn't have rear seat belts in it, so he never felt comfortable carrying me in it. His one, as I remember, was the basic L model, whereas the one that I'm in today is the top spec Vanden Plas, or perhaps Plas or Plas. The jury's out on how you pronounce it. I'm sure it isn't, but I just don't know. But I'm going to go with Vanden Plas. Pla? Pla. Says the owner.
H or an R. The controversy continues.
The controversy does very much continue. And of course, being the Vanden, certain things that you would expect, like electric windows and intermittent wipers, are not there. However, you did get some rather nice extras, such as this real walnut trim, which you don't get in cars now, and even back then could have been fake, but no, they've gone for the correct real wood. It came with mats on the dashboard and opening sunroof. It had rear armrests, and I'm out of breath. Also, this car has only 2 fuses for the entire electrical system, which I think is pretty impressive, although probably pretty scary if one of them blows. It is worth noting though that this car was the first production car that had 60-40 split rear seats, and it also had a very simple dash setup, meaning you could just put the binnacle on the other side to have it as a left-hand drive to save on its production cost, to make the Mini Metro just that little bit cheaper for everyone wanting to buy it, unless of course you had the money for the VP, in which case it didn't matter. But one thing that the Mini Metro had very much over its rivals was space. This car is 6 inches shorter than the equivalent Fiesta, yet has more interior capacity, and the reason for that is twofold. One is that the gearbox is mounted underneath the engine and shares the oil with it, so it's all on top of each other and nice and compact. And the other one is that it has a space-saving suspension that doesn't feature turrets, and that is where we come on to what I've really been wanting to talk about, which is the Hydrogas suspension. People look at my car and say, that's on a hydroelastic suspension, and it isn't true. So Citroën started this whole thing in 1954 with the hydropneumatic suspension, and then BMC developed hydroelastic, and then a little variant of that is what's in this, which is Hydrogas. So Hydrogas is essentially kind of a similar idea. It's still got spheres, and it still has gas, and it's dampened down with an alcoholic mixture rather than a mineral one, but essentially the main difference is that it's connected rather than being independent. So it's not as comfy as a Citroën suspension, but it's still its own quirky thing. But what we can do, now that we're educated, is stop calling my cars Hydrogas suspensions. Thanks. But ultimately this is a car review, and therefore I do have to speak something about what this car is like to drive. And it could be faster, the steering could be lighter, but it's still a perfect little city car for what was on offer at the 80s. As I said, it gave you more space than a bigger Fiesta. So in that sense, it is a really, really good Super Mini. If you want to buy a Metro now, of course, you're going to be rather whatever the opposite of spoiled for choice is, because there are only about 14 Vanden Plas's left. In fact, there's a Metro on eBay currently, which is identical to the one that I knew from my childhood, for £9,000. Admittedly, it's only got 18,000 miles on it, but still, £9,000 for a small little 80s Super Mini. There's gonna only be a very, very small amount of people out there that are going to be wanting to buy them. But these are cars that are worth saving, and as I always say, every single old car saved is one Tesla less made. But when I was doing the research for this, I noticed that this car is from Dorset, exactly the same place as my granddad's car's from, and it was registered on the 6th of May 1983, exactly 9 years before I was born. And on the 1st of May is when my granddad's was registered, which means that these two cars may have shared the showroom together. And although Granddad wrote his one off in 2004 when he crashed into his next door neighbour in a supermarket car park, this car is a little bit special to me because it now is as close to the garage door opening and hoping that I might get a ride as I will ever get again.